Namaskar. In this video, we will discuss the Yakshas and Nagas. From time immemorial, people were inquisitive about the essence of life and about time, Kala. Outside the arena of contemporary religions, the popular culture of India associated these philosophical questions with the Yakshas, the Nagas, the female divinities or water goddesses, Makaras. I discuss Makaras in another video. In this video, we will discuss the Yakshas and the Nagas. The Yakshas and the Nagas are strongly associated with trees, water bodies, and earth. When discussing the artistic delineation of motifs representing the Yakshas and Nagas, in ancient India has a rich storyline to match, describing some unique prototypes that guided the country's artistic journey of thousands of years. The Yaksha images are some of the first anthropomorphic images in stone. They are indigenous creations and found all over the Indian subcontinent. As noted by Ananda Kumaraswamy, the fact that the art of the Indian school pursued a normal course, it develops from the first to the last, is not a proof that the refinement of the primitive types was due to external influences, but a proof of continuity in the indigenous tradition. The theory of the indigenous nature of sculptural representation of deities is further validated by numerous anthropologists and historians such as Ram Prasad Chanda. Yakshas are described as Devajati. In ancient India of Mahabharata times, a Yakshini cult at Rajagriha is mentioned, and another world-renowned Yakshini shrine is also mentioned. We also have the 5 Pandavas coming face to face with a Yaksha who happens to be Dharma. In the Buddhist Sanskrit and Pali texts, such as the Atanatya Sutra, there are 41 Yaksha chiefs, and in Sutta Nipata, there are 28 chiefs. In the Jatakas, the Bodhisattvas are always born as tree spirits and are considered as Devatas. Yakshas are found in Buddhist texts who live in trees, lakes, deserts, and seas. In Jainism, the Yakshas have 13 chiefs. In Rig Veda, we find Yaksha as an intellectual concept, as a symbol, and as an abstract idea. But Yakshas also did get concrete shape in the Rig Veda as different devatas such as Mitra, Varuna, Agni. They also became bodhisattvas in Buddhism and various devatas in Jainism. But besides all this, Yakshas had a very special place in society during the writing of Rig Veda and Yadur Veda. In the Vedas, the Yaksha word is used interchangeably as Brahman, synonymous with worshipful deity. In Jaminiya Brahmana, Yaksha is described as boundless, like a huge tortoise. In later Vedic period, Yaksha is primordial, as described in Gopatha Brahmana. In Atharva Veda, we have Yaksha Mahad-Yaksham, in the midst of the universe, reclining in concentrated energy, tapas, on the back of waters. The Taittiriya Brahmana explains that Yaksha became primal as a result of his own tapas. In later day, Brahmana, Atman, Purusha, Buddha were all used to describe Yaksha. In Jaminiya Brahmana, Kena Upanishad, Yaksha is associated with the name of Brahma, the creator of the universe. Hence, trees and water bodies are described as the abodes of Yakshas. It is important to mention here that the trees and water bodies are also the abodes of Nagas. They are deities with human face, expanding hoods, and tails of serpents. The water bodies are also associated with Makara, the mythical creature, who also represents the river goddess. In the Taittiriya Brahmana, a simile of tree is used to explain the origins of the universe. Yaksha is also associated with Skamba, which is considered the infinite pillar of fire of consciousness. Vishnu is described as Brihad Yaksha, and Krishna is considered as Kubera, king of Yakshas. The sutras mark the end of the Vedic period, during which time the Chaitya worship came into being and Yakshas became tutelary deities in households. Tree worship was practiced in the Indus Valley civilization in the 3rd millennium BCE. A seal is found in Mohenjo-daro of a peepal tree branch with 2 unicorns emerging from the bottom of the stem. Tree worship was widespread during the prehistoric as well as Vedic times. By 6th century BCE, the Yakshas were accepted as devatas in Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism. The Buddhist and Jain literature have reference of Yakshas as sacred trees. Mohavamsa, a Pali text, refers to a Yakshi residing in a tree. It is mentioned that a tree can also be a Chaitya, that is Sanskrit for Chaitya or Thupa. Yaksha temples are usually built in a garden filled with different species of trees. All shrines of Yakshas have a stone table placed under a sacred tree. In Jaina texts, the cosmos is an infinite empty space called Aloka Akasha. The upper part of the cosmic human being is called Udvaloka, and the lower part is the Adholoka, and the world in between is the Madhyaloka, a very tiny circle in the navel of the cosmic being. And in the central part of this is the Jambu Dvipa, where the human beings live and they cannot exist anywhere else. Now, Jambu Dvipa has 4 gates which are guarded by 4 Yakshas: Vijaya, Vaijayanta, Jayanta and Aparajita. Another Yaksha, Anadhiya, is also the guardian of the whole Jambudvipa. The cult of Yakshas started from forests and deep woods and seafaring merchants. The Chatiyas, garden orchards and burrows, is a kind of Yaksha worship, and Buddha used to visit all these places when invited to preach his gospel. In the Jatakas, the Bodhisattva is always born as a tree spirit and is called a Devata. The Mahabharata in the Aranyaka or Vanaparva mentions Gaya, a place in the state of Bihar in India, and Akshayavata, the undecaying banyan tree. It describes that Rishi Markandeya during one of the great floods, the great deluge which comes at the end of known world. He spots a child lounging on the branch of a huge Nyagrodha tree. The child gives him shelter inside his stomach, and he stays there for the next hundreds of years, and it's another beautiful wall by itself, and then he is let out into this earth. In the Khandagiri and Udayagiri caves near Bhubaneswar, we have engraving of a Yakshi protecting a winged deer. The Yaksha figures found near Bhubaneswar are dwarf figures similar to those found in Sanchi at the western gate.
Here is an image of murtis of Nagaraja and his consort who were worshipped in a village 3 kilometers from Bhubaneswar. A Yaksha figure, which was 5 feet 1 inch, belonging to the 1st century BC or much older, was found at Bhubaneswar. Here's another figure of Yaksha, which was found at Dumduma, a village near Khandagiri in Bhubaneswar.
Similarity is found between the sculptures at the Great Stupa at Sanchi and the relief work seen in Khandagiri and Udayagiri caves of Bhubaneswar. Now, scholars like Devangana Desai have something to say about this, which explains the reason behind it. She suggests that we can very clearly differentiate the Mauryan court art from the post-Mauryan art from Bharat and Sanchi from the 3rd to the 1st century BCE. The Bharat and Sanchi art were indigenous, deriving inspiration from the style and narrative form of the Charana Chitras. Between 300 BC and 300 CE, there was a symbiotic relationship between the merchants, monasteries, and the royalty, and there was close attention paid to cultural and ecological factors and involved the common people directly in the production of public artwork and places. According to Devangana Desai, in contrast to the individualized tastes of the Mauryan ruler, it is the collective tastes of people that found representation in the post-Mauryan art. In the post-Puranic era, the significance of Nagas and Yakshas did not diminish in the medieval Odisha architecture. In the oldest Odisha temples, Nagarajas with full water vessels were found on both sides of doorways. There are details of temple construction found in Shilpa Prakasa, a Shilpa Shastra from Odisha. The Nagas and Yakshas are the essence of life and are invoked during the construction of any Hindu temple. When the temple site is chosen, the vertical central axis of the temple is marked to represent space between Brahma and Ananta. Around this axis, a circle is drawn on which the 8 divinities, the Dikpalas, who are identical to 8 Yakshas, are established by means of a Sankhu. Ananta, the cosmic serpent, is at the base, upon whose 1,000 roots the earth is supported, and Brahma is the highest point that is invoked in the skies. The 8 presiding deities who are invoked in the beginning are also represented by sculptures in the temple facade in the respective directions as guardian deities. In order for the temple to be properly situated in time, a Nagabandha is placed, which is common to all temples of Odisha, who is invoked to encircle the building site with his body before the construction of the temple starts. The 64 yoginis of the Chausati Yogini temple at Hirapur near Bhubaneswar is also an example of temple dedicated to mother goddesses, the Matrikas. As has been discussed by Pandit Sadashiva Ratha Sarma, the Devi temples are either rectangular or circular. The Chausati Yogini temple has a circular enclosure without a roof. There are 64 niches housing 64 yogini images. The 64 yoginis correspond to the 8-petal lotus in Tantra traditions, where each petal refers to a Matrika figure, and the 8 yoginis are associated with every Matrika, and all of them are represented in a circle with respect to a specific direction. In Buddhist Tantra tradition, a chakra is a significant symbol of rotation of Shakti. The chakra has 64 spokes, referring to the 64 yoginis. The Bhaumakaras had a strong Shakta tradition, bringing together Buddhist and Hindu practitioners And this temple was built under the directions of Queen Hira in the 9th century. In Odisha, the Saura tribes in deep forests worship a pillar with head as the supreme being or Kitung. In the present day Jagannath culture of Odisha, the significance of tree as Purushottama himself is manifest everywhere. Legends have it that Lord manifested himself as a log of wood that came floating and was carved by himself. The idol of Jagannath is made from neem tree and is self-manifest. Every 15 to 17 years, the idol of Jagannath is renewed. The experts look for symbols of God Vishnu in the tree's bark, from which new idols of Jagannath, Balabhadra and Subhadra are carved out. The Kalpavata, a banyan tree, which is mentioned in the Purushottama Mahatmya in Skanda Purana, is worshipped in the temple courtyard. Bhatta Avakasa is written by Balarama Das in the 16th century, and he states that Lord Jagannath is always attended by 64 yoginis, Katayani, Saptamatrika, Vimala and Viraja. The yearly Ratha Yatra of Lord Jagannath to Gundicha Bari is symbolic representation of his love for the wilderness. For the Vaishnava Hindus, Ratha Yatra represents Lord Jagannath's trip to Vrindavan, the eternal wilderness. For the Buddhist, Ratha Yatra would represent Buddha's visit to the groves. That's it in this video. We'll come back with much more on Odisha and its interesting stories of art and architecture in another video.
Santa